How did I get into doing car reviews on YouTube? It's one of the most common questions I get, especially whenever I tell people what I do for a living or if they see a press car in the driveway or something like that. And so it's been 10 years actually that I've been doing car reviews now this fall, and 7 years that I've been doing it full time. And so I thought it was time to do a look back at kind of my journey here, how I got to where I am today, and what it takes to be a car reviewer and how you can get into it yourself if you're considering it. And I'm going to go through some of my backstory a little bit first. So if you're just wanting to cut to the chase and learn how to actually do car reviews for a living, there'll be a timestamp in the description, and I'll put it in the video here. You can skip to if you want to skip the backstory here. But for those of you who are interested in my backstory about how I got into doing cars and why I even wanted to do car reviews in general, I wanted to be a car reviewer ever since I was 11 years old. And so growing up, obviously, like most other kids that are into cars, I had Hot Wheels and played lots of racing games and things like that. But on my 11th birthday, my aunt actually got me a subscription to Road and Track. And so in the fall of 2001 is whenever I got my first Road and Track issue. And the second I got that first issue, I was obsessed with reading it from cover to cover, memorizing every spec, every 0 to 60 time, all that kind of stuff I memorized just for fun. I was just so into it, and I just soaked it up like a sponge. And that really is what ignited this passion for car reviewing and just reading these articles. It just spoke to me, and it was just like, I want to do this. It sounded like it was so much fun. It was so cool, and it just immediately clicked with me. As many of you know, this channel started with the username Subaru WRX fan before I changed it over to Maran Motoring back in 2017. And so the whole Subaru WRX fan username actually got started in the fall of 2001 as well. So my dad actually took me to a Subaru dealer, and the salesman there was so impressed by my knowledge of the new WRX that had just come out there for the 2002 model year that he actually took us, me and my dad, for a ride in a WRX, and it blew my little mind. I mean, he did a clutch dump and was like, it was a very abusive test drive the salesman took us on, but it was so much fun. It just cemented in my mind that the Subaru WRX was the coolest thing ever. And so from that point forward, I used that username all throughout the early 2000s. I had a fan site for Need for Speed games actually with the Subaru WRX fan name on it. Back then it was my username on the GameSpot forums I was discussing, and I was the Subaru WRX fan, and that's kind of how that whole thing got started way back then. And I just continued to use that name because it was where I kind of started putting some gameplay videos of Need for Speed on back in the early days of my YouTube channel. But 2006 is when I actually started the Subaru WRX fan YouTube channel, and at that time everyone basically on YouTube was just doing it for the fun of it. There was no making money. I just had posted a few gameplay videos of Need for Speed, a few car videos, and that was about it. And so it's just something I did a little bit of and then kind of forgot about for a couple of years, honestly. And then 2007 and 2008 is when I was shopping around for majors for college. I was about to graduate high school and trying to figure out what I wanted to do for a living and for the rest of my life here. And of course, being a journalist was one of the first things I really looked at and wanted to do. But at least in 2007 and 2008, according to my limited research at the time, basically to be a journalist, you still had to work for a magazine or for a website or something like that. And typically you live in a big city, you weren't making very much money, and also the turnover rate was pretty low back then. If you worked at a magazine, most of those guys stuck in the magazine for decades, and there wasn't really a whole lot of opportunities either. So it seemed like kind of a tough thing to get into. And even if you got into it, you're living in a big city making not much money. It just didn't seem super appealing to me, even though of course I would be loving driving all these cars. And so honestly, it just didn't seem like a realistic option. So I kind of gave up on that and decided, well, it'd be really cool to be an automotive engineer. So I decided to start pursuing that instead. So I ended up going to Virginia Tech for college, and my very first semester, it didn't take long for me to find out that I did not have what it takes to be an automotive engineer, unfortunately. So long story short, I ended up landing in financial planning and ended up getting a bachelor's degree in that. But all through college, I had been posting videos to my channel. I had friends that had some cool cars at the time, and I had a bunch of just cool opportunities, going to dealerships and various things like that and filming a bunch of different cars. And so I just been doing that on the side, for fun. And again, just kind of slowly building the subscriber base on the channel and slowly building it up. And so throughout college from 2008 to 2012, I managed to, rack up a couple thousand subscribers by that point. And, again, still just doing it for fun for the most part. But I did have a friend around that time that did open my eyes to the ability that you could actually make money on YouTube at this point. And so in the fall of 2010, I actually applied for the YouTube Partner Program, which is what you had to do back then in order to monetize your videos. And so I got accepted into the program in the fall of 2010. And actually did start to make a little bit of money on the videos at that point. But again, these videos were not getting very many views, you know, a couple thousand views tops for the most part. And, you know, again, just very small amount of subscribers. So it's still just something I did on the side for fun. You know, I still worked at a dealership for my primary job. But one big break that I did get with the channel was in the summer of 2011. And that was whenever they filmed The Dark Knight Rises in Pittsburgh, or at least much of that movie in Pittsburgh. And so I actually went down to the set every single day for the month or so they were filming there, and filmed behind the scenes footage of them, you know, filming the movie. And so those videos racked up millions of views. They were shared all over the internet. Every website you could think of basically had, you know, shared one of my videos at some point. And so when the dust had settled from all that, I ended up with about 5,000 subscribers at that point, and that base definitely gave me a bit of a head start over someone who'd be starting a review channel at 0 subscribers. And so, you know, that's one thing to keep in mind is, you know, I had a few lucky breaks along the way here for sure to help me to kind of have a little bit of an easier time getting into the reviewing stuff, and actually, you know, being able to have a following on YouTube versus, you know, someone who's just starting from scratch and, you know, starting at, you know, square one. But anyway, so I graduated college in 2012, and unfortunately after I graduated, I was struggling to find a job, at least a job that I wanted in financial planning. And so after a lot of interviewing and, you know, even getting like a 3rd round interview at one of these firms and then having it not work out, I just kind of had just given up on the financial planning thing, at least for the time being. I didn't know what to do, honestly, so for a few months I started selling insurance. And during this time I had also been an extra in some movies, and I did a separate video on this a couple years back, and I will link that above if you're curious to hear about my movie experiences of being in a bunch of different movies. It was a lot of fun. So I was doing some of that at the same time as well. And so part of me was like still, you know, thinking it'd be fun to kind of pursue this YouTube thing. Part of me also was considering doing an acting career, and I had a buddy of mine who also was considering doing acting, and we were thinking about moving out to LA and you know, giving that a try. I actually had been taking some acting classes as well to try and, you know, improve my skills a little bit and all that. And so it was kind of back and forth between those two things. But around this same time, I also bought my 2013 Subaru BRZ, and so I also had this idea that, you know, it'd be really fun to just show off the experience of what it was like to own one of these vehicles. And you know, it was a brand new thing, and I think a lot of people were curious about it. And so, you know, I started posting videos of, you know, owning my BRZ and what it's like, and, you know, my mod journey and all that kind of stuff. And that really helped to start growing the channel a lot faster, and you know, started to become a little bit more involved in something I was doing on a more regular basis, a little more seriously. And that was where I was starting to see the potential that this could potentially be some type of a job, you know, down the road. And at that point it was still just a few thousand subscribers, not getting a ton of views, but, you know, I could see there was some momentum here and it was starting to gain some steam. And so after a few months of doing the insurance sales too, I realized I definitely didn't like doing that either. And so at that point I was like, you know what? Okay, like nothing's really working aside from this YouTube thing. Everything else is kind of in closed doors and just, you know, things I wasn't super into. So I was like, I'm living with my parents at the time. I have no other bills aside from my car payment, which was mostly being covered by the YouTube videos, actually. That and, you know, some of the movie extra work and other things I was doing on the side. And so I was like, okay, well, I really have no risk here. So I'm like, I'm going to give myself 6 months, and I'm just going to try to make this YouTube thing a job and see what happens. And so in the fall of 2012, I quit my insurance job and just decided to, you know, do the car videos I was doing with the BRZ, and also to start doing car reviews. So how did I get my first few cars to review? So the first car that I reviewed was a 2012 Subaru Forester, and that was actually a service loaner while my BRZ was in getting serviced. And so I had the afternoon with the vehicle, and I filmed my first review then. And so starting off, you know, my review style was definitely inspired by Top Gear a little bit. You know, I mean, all of us, you know, probably idolized those guys and wanted to do the same thing they were doing. So it was a little bit of that, but I also wanted to give a comprehensive and informational review that would actually be helpful to people whenever they're going out, you know, car shopping. Because kind of one of the things that was my driving factor, and still is kind of one of the things that motivates me the most, is that I truly believe that if I can help some of you to find a car that you'll love, and it'll, you know, put a smile on your face every day on your way to work, you know, that just makes you a little bit happier. And so in a tiny little way, you know, I'm helping to make the world a slightly happier place, one person at a time, one car at a time. So that was kind of always been my driving thing. And so that's why I started this, and that's why I continue to do it to this day. So I had my Sony Handycam that I bought back when I did the videos. And so I just used that. I bought a suction cup mount and used that to film at first. I had no training on how to film or any training on how to edit a video. I just taught myself all that stuff. And then my next review was on a 2013 Chevy Malibu rental car that was actually provided to me again by the Subaru dealership. And then I tried reviewing a few zip cars for the next couple of reviews since I could do hourly rentals for those, but that time crunch was stressful and it wasn't very cost effective either. And it did help me to develop my style though a little bit, but after those two, I ran out of cars to review and I didn't post another review until the spring of 2013. But in the spring of 2013, a friend of mine actually hooked me up with a bunch of their friends who were having a bunch of cool cars, and I was able to review some of those and, start doing car reviews once again. And they were very friendly and kind and brave, honestly, to let some person who's only done a few car reviews let me drive their vehicles. And I was a complete stranger to these people as well. And they were so nice to let me drive their vehicles around for a few hours. One of them was even letting me drive their Lamborghini Gallardo Superleggero, which is just wild. They were so nice to let me do that. When at that point I had done 7 car reviews and I was already driving a Lamborghini, so it was a pretty wild ride there for the first few. But again, that was still the same trouble of there's only so many friends' cars, there's only so many family members' cars you can review before you run out of cars. And this is really the biggest struggle for anyone starting car reviews is trying to find a reliable, consistent source of cars to review is the toughest part and the thing that stops a lot of people from being able to do it consistently, because consistency is really what you need if you're trying to build a YouTube channel. So if you don't have a steady stream of cars, it's just going to be a really uphill battle. But thankfully, this is where one of my big breaks occurred that helped me to break through that hurdle and allow me to continue doing car reviews. And that is that when I had been in high school and college, I was working as a detailer at a car dealership. And one of the wholesalers that would come in and buy some of the trade-ins and sell them on his used car lot, I kind of got to know him over the years. And we were friends on Facebook, and he saw that I was doing these car reviews. And he called me up one day and was just like, hey, if you ever want to come review the cars on my lot, he's like, it doesn't cost me anything. You can literally drive anything on the lot here. That's fine by me. And so, I mean, that basically supplied me with an endless supply of interesting cars. They're always getting new stuff in, and there was a lot of really sporty and exciting stuff as well. And, that was really the ultimate thing that allowed me to do this. And, if it wasn't for Harrison Auto Sales, I wouldn't have probably been doing this still, honestly. And so I'm always going to be forever thankful to Brad at Harrison Auto Sales for giving me that opportunity. And around the time that I had started doing the car reviews there at Harrison Auto Sales, I also started working for him. I was doing some of the inventory pictures and listings online, and also doing various, driving vehicles around and stuff like that they needed done. And so, that actually is how I was able to meet some of the other dealers in the area. So I met South Park Mitsubishi through, working at Harrison Auto Sales, and also Tom Henry Chevy. And so those dealers also gave me the same kind of offers that Harrison Auto Sales did. And so I had multiple dealerships now to pick from, several different, very large inventories of vehicles, and that, supplied me with enough vehicles for years. I mean, between those 3 dealers, and then also just some of the viewers that were starting to offer me cars throughout those early years, I was able to do like 70 different reviews, over 70 reviews between when I started, in that spring of 2013 all the way through till about early 2015. And over the years here, when people have asked me, how can I get into doing car reviews as well, that's always my go-to advice is, start doing family and friends vehicles, figure out your own unique style, and then from there, take those videos and try and build a little bit of an audience, and take those and show those to dealerships and try and pitch it as I'll give you a shout out if you let me do a test drive here on video, and try and slowly gain some momentum that way, because I still think the dealership route is probably the easiest way to make this happen if you're truly starting from zero. And then in early 2015, my next big breakthrough happens here for the channel. And that is that one of the GM PR representatives had been noticing all the views I was getting on my Chevy reviews at Tom Henry Chevy. I mean, some of those early videos that I did for them, I mean, they were hundreds of thousands of views, pretty early on there. In the first week or so, I'd hit like 100,000 views. I mean, really pulling in strong numbers that I wish I could even get these days. But so, GM took notice, and so they offered me my very first press vehicle, a 2015 Chevy Colorado. Was my first press vehicle, and I'm again forever grateful to Steve Martin, not that Steve Martin, but Steve Martin of GM, who kind of was the first manufacturer to take a chance on me and give some random kid that's doing reviews of dealership cars an actual press vehicle for a week. It's a leap of faith, so I really I'm always going to be appreciative of that. And so anyway, but that kind of started this whole thing of, hey, now there's these new vehicles that are getting dropped off in my driveway, and I have them for an entire week and a full tank of gas, and allowed me to kind of do do, a more evolved review and a little more in depth than just the quick, few hour drive that I would do with all the other videos. But the floodgates to press vehicles didn't just open up automatically the second that happened. At least not for me. That's not the way that it works. So it still was, continuing to, do all the reviews from all the other, 4 various sources that I had, to pull cars from, in addition to, slowly building up press vehicles. And that was it just went one manufacturer at a time of, meeting the right people, making the right connections, building those relationships, whether it was at auto shows or like the regional events that were put on by the Automotive Press Association here, the WAPA events that we have here in my area. But there's, regional events all over the country. You can join those and, kind of meet a lot of these executives at these car companies and, the people who control who gets the press vehicles and stuff like that. So meeting some of them was just, one manufacturer after another, little by little, building that up and building up, my portfolio, I guess you could say, of now, over a dozen, different car manufacturers that, work with me now. And it was just something that just takes time, and it takes time to build those relationships, build the right connections, meet the right people, and just continuing to work at that. And it was a gradual thing, was slowly but surely started to grow. The opportunities started to grow, and I started getting more and more press vehicles, while still also retaining a lot of the exciting stuff that a lot of viewers were offering me and things like that. And so it really allowed me to have just a ton of awesome content all throughout the next few years. But by the time the summer of 2015 rolled around, the channel had really gained some nice momentum. I already hit about 100,000 subscribers at that point. I was pulling in between the residual views on all the other reviews that I had posted and all the new stuff I was posting. I was pulling in about 1.5 million views a month, and that was the point, at least at that point in time, where I felt comfortable to be like, okay, I can probably do this full time. It also, I had a higher requirement at that point because I had just bought a house, I just got married, so there was some more income requirements there than what there were previously when I was living with my parents and just had a car payment and that was it. So, and obviously that stuff will change depending on the genre you're doing, for YouTube, and, what all you're doing, the types of videos you're doing. And also it's just these days, it's different than it was in 2015 as far as how many views you need to make, X amount of dollars these days. But back then that was like, okay, I'm at 100,000 subscribers, 1.5 million views a month. This is a safe level for me to actually quit my job at Harrison Auto Sales. So I left that job at that point, went full-time with YouTube, and I've been full-time with YouTube ever since. And then in 2017, the next breakthrough happened where Saab Kyle actually invited me to join the Automotive Video Association, which was this new group that was forming of automotive YouTubers that all were kind of bonding together. We'd hang out over a weekend with a bunch of cool cars and do, take turns doing reviews on all of them. And it was a great opportunity not only to film a bunch of awesome cars, but also just to meet, new reviewers, and the connections and the friendships that I made as a result of that event was just been awesome over the years here. And just allowed me to also be introduced to new people as far as the manufacturers go, and it really helped me to start getting invited to more and more events. And so that's how actually was part of what led to one of my first events that I was invited on was the Kia Stinger GT. It was the first press launch I ever went on. So that was in the fall of 2017. And then from that point on, it was really just a matter of as the subscribers grew, as I grew my network and made more connections and made more relationships with more manufacturers and stuff, the opportunities continue to grow and grow, and got to a really large point where now I don't get invited for everything, but I get invited for a lot of really awesome opportunities. And so over the past several years here, it really has turned into my dream job. I mean, I loved what I did back filming the cars at the dealerships, and I love meeting up with fans and driving their cars and reviewing that. It's so much fun, and I'm very fortunate for all those opportunities and experiences as well. But whenever you're being flown all over the country reviewing the newest, coolest stuff, it's a very, very exciting experience. And again, being some of the first people to drive these new vehicles and giving your thoughts on them and stuff, it's just a truly dream job in my opinion. And it just is what I've always wanted to do, and I just feel so fortunate and thankful to be able to do this. I mean, especially in the past year here, two kind of pinch me moments where I was invited for the media launches for the Subaru BRZ, the new version, and the new WRX. And if you would have told me 10 years ago when I was starting this that in 10 years I would be on the national media launch for the next generation of the BRZ, and then I'd be on the media launch for the brand new WRX, I wouldn't have believed it. It's just this truly wild ride. And so my journey is just another one of those examples of a very cliche and played out thing, but it's, if you have enough hard work, enough determination, and a little bit of luck, you can really make your dreams happen and get to where you want to be in life. And of course, I also want to give a huge thank you to all of you who've been watching the videos over the years, because it all comes down to you who watch the videos. If it wasn't for the views, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. I wouldn't have had any of the awesome experiences, any of the awesome friends, any of the awesome, memories, and just incredible things that I've had a chance to do over the past several years, from meeting celebrities and just doing all kinds of crazy adventures and awesome drives. And it's been so many things. I could go on for hours about all the fun stuff I've gotten to do as a result of this channel. And so that all goes back to you guys watching the channel. Without you guys, none of this would have been possible. So thank you all for all of your support over the years and for watching. And while I do definitely want to keep this video positive, if you are someone who's watching this, and considering doing car reviewing as a job, I do also want to, say that it isn't all just sunshine and rainbows all the time, and there are some real struggles and frustrations that go along with this as well. Just like any job, there's no perfect job, and even though this is my dream job, there's still some frustration and behind the scenes, struggles that happen that you guys don't see. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. People don't realize, for my 20 to 30 minute car reviews, it usually takes me, a few hours to film. And then it takes me oftentimes at least 12 hours to edit a car review. So, I mean, each car review is usually like a 2-day process between filming and editing. And again, all the emails and the back and forth and scheduling and, all these different things and, finding filming locations. And I mean, there's so much that goes into it. And so it's definitely a lot of work, along with all the fun and stuff. There's definitely a lot of hard work involved as well. And so just keep in mind that, if you do manage to figure out a way to, find a bunch of cars to review and a consistent stream of cars, and you manage to, figure out how to film and edit all on your own, and, you can deal with the mean commenters and deal with all the other, struggles and stuff that I've, briefly mentioned here. On top of all that stuff, there's also all the stuff that YouTube adds in that makes it a little bit more stressful, with different algorithm changes you have to adapt to, and also the mental toll that you have to adapt to, where YouTube, really just pits you against yourself with ranking your videos against your past videos. And so, your current performance, if it isn't outdoing your previous performance or the performance of other channels that you're competing with, then it actually ranks you like, this video is 8 out of 10 of the last videos you've done as far as performance goes. And they're constantly hammering into you like, hey, like, this is really a disappointment because this video isn't getting very many views. And so there's some real mental, toll that happens there, in addition to the fact that, people are constantly judging you, of course, just putting your opinions out there on the internet like anyone else would. It's the same thing where you have, the comments, you have, just making sure that you're not screwing up so that people don't, correct you a million times in the comments, all that kind of stuff, making sure that you're remembering everything perfectly and all that kind of stuff, being an expert on a car that, you have very little information on, those types of things are definitely challenges as well. And then in addition to all that, you also have just the changing landscape of this world that we're living in, and, especially on YouTube and car reviewing even in general. When I started this 10 years ago, most of the people you probably watch on YouTube these days weren't even doing videos, and I've watched many channels, brand new, car review channels that have, come, and there's so many YouTubers that are huge these days that I met back when they had a few thousand subscribers, and then they've blown up now, and, they have millions of subscribers and all that kind of stuff. And, trying to keep up is tough. There's people that have better filming abilities, better editing abilities, better reviewing and presentation abilities, better access to cars, whatever the case might be. And so trying to keep up with that is definitely another thing that can be a little bit of a struggle, especially whenever you get to a larger scale with this. It can definitely be something else that is an extra weight you have to try and carry there. And so that's not fun either. And it's also just this changing world that we're in as far as social media and how people consume media. So even if you have everything else going for you as far as all the stuff I just mentioned, then there's now there's TikTok. And so now you have to, say, okay, well, now people aren't watching 20 and 30 minute videos as much anymore, and trying to adapt to that. And, it's just a very shaky, uncertain thing. And so it's definitely a little more anxiety ridden than it used to be, in the first few years of doing this, when it was just YouTube and life was still a lot simpler in a lot of ways. These days, it's a lot more complicated. There's so many different platforms you have to post on. And keep up with everything. And so it's there's a lot that goes into it for sure. And, it's just, that's kind of the one thing about this. I love doing what I do, and I hope I can do it the rest of my life in one form or another. But, trying to figure out, what even the next 10 years holds is really hard to say. Is YouTube going to be around in 10 years? Is, what's going to happen? Are people going to have the attention span to even watch a review anymore? These types of things are questions that I don't have the answer to yet. And so, I'll just try and navigate them as best as I can and, see what happens. But just another thing to kind of give you a little bit of a warning if you are trying to get into car reviews or any kind of YouTubing in general, as far as, being a YouTube content creator, it's a very uncertain future with the way things are going. It's something that can be a very temporary thing that's a passing fad, or it could be something that, has some staying power. We just don't know. So definitely keep that in mind, especially if you're going to make the leap to trying to do this full time and not just have it as some fun thing on the side. And even despite my best efforts and the best efforts of many other automotive YouTubers out there, a lot of us are on a decline. We had a peak a few years back, and, ever since then, it's kind of been slowly declining as, we're just trying to, stand out from the crowd with, the growing amount of other people doing car reviews, and just, again, from TikTok and things like that. It continues to be something that, gets harder and harder every year. So that's just another thing. If you're joining now, it's a lot different than it was when I joined, 10 years ago to the car reviewing world, when there was a handful of us doing it on YouTube and that was it. These days there's a lot of people out there, and trying to stand out is really, really tough. But I don't want to discourage you, because in the past couple of years, there's still been a bunch of channels that have really blown up and have really had a ton of success just overnight, really, in the past, year or two here. And so it just shows that there's still totally is a potential there to have, a very successful YouTube channel and start from nothing even today and still build it up to be something really, really huge. So there's still definitely some hope out there if it's something you really do want to do. You just got to find a way to, really be unique, stand out from the crowd, and find some way to kind of break through. But if you can crack that, then I gotta say it's an amazing job. It's like I said, my dream job. It's so much fun. I think if you're really into cars, then the rewards are certainly worth all the work and the stress and everything else that goes with it. It is an absolute blast, and again, I feel very, very fortunate to be able to do this. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed my little journey here. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to try and answer them. If there's anything that I missed or anything you're curious about, as a follow-up, I'd be more than happy to answer. But otherwise, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.